Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday Tea Time. I am up on the hill. I was going to go down and do this tea time from where the horses are, but we have a huge blanket of the most beautiful white fog through the valley. I don't know if you guys can see it. And I can't even tell where my horses are. So I thought I'd stay up here on the hillside and talk to you guys from up here where I don't have any fog. And it'll burn off in the next half hour or so, and then I'll go play with my horses. But until then, I thought I would tackle a subject that I was a little worried to tackle, and this is the subject of escalating pressure. This was a request actually from someone for me to talk about escalating pressure, and I thought, ooh, that's a hot button topic. I don't know if I want to touch that, but I'm in a really good mood, so let's go ahead and give it a shot and see if we can give everybody a little food for thought. The first thing that I want to say about people who say you shouldn't use escalating pressure or you should use escalating pressure is I think that the horse industry is absolutely full of all of us that paint what we do in pretty words and what somebody else does in the harshest light possible. And I think we all do it to some extent, and hopefully we all try not to. This is a collaborative venture. We are all here helping each other do better, hopefully. And I would like to think that there's many, many roads to Rome. So there's lots of ways that you can do things. And we all have the freedom of choice. We can choose how we would like to do things. So escalating pressure is a concept that has come up a lot in social media recently. And the idea is, if the horse doesn't respond, do you escalate pressure to get a response, or do you not escalate pressure to get a response? And my answer to this is there is no avoiding escalating pressure, in my opinion. Escalating pressure is a fact of life. Now, you can escalate it by adding pressure, and that's how everybody thinks of it. Or you can escalate pressure by merely maintaining what you've put on with the horse unable to walk away. And let's face it, most people have the horse in some sort of a situation where either there's a halter and a lead rope holding them back, a round pen holding them back, or the desire for the food that you have all the control of that's holding them from leaving. So, if the horse can't leave, even if you don't add pressure, pressure is building. That's the nature of life. So anytime we put pressure on, the sensation of that pressure is going to keep building for the horse if they are not allowed to leave. Now, can they ignore that pressure? Yeah, for a time. So the term shut down horses has come up a lot in my work, and I really believe that shutdown is actually a very valuable self-regulating tool for horses. When they're put in bad situations that they can't get out of, shutdown can be a really good self-regulating tool that is better than fight and flight. Now, we don't really want any of those three, but we do want our horses to be healthy and happy. And if they have to do that to be healthy and happy, that's what they have to do. So let's say you have a horse that is maybe in a state of shutdown and you've put pressure on them and they're just not responding. They seem to be ignoring you. I promise you, if they're alive, they cannot ignore you forever. And what that means is either they will leave, they will fight back, or they will respond to you eventually. The reason they'll respond to you eventually is because pressure increases with time. So even if you don't use escalating pressure in the most basic sense of the term, escalating pressure means that the horse is feeling escalation. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have added pressure. So in a lot of cases, I think that people who use escalating pressure actually are more kind to the horse because the amount of time that pressure is applied is less. So the faster you can take the pressure off and appreciate your horse and enjoy their company and love everything they do, in some cases, that's a lot kinder, even if you used escalating pressure to get a response that you wanted. I think it's really important for us to remember that horses are herd animals and we're herd animals. And all of us want responses. This is what makes a herd. So if you can't get a response from your herd mates, you have to decide what you're going to do about it. Now, a lot of people will take the Zen route and they'll be like, that's okay. I don't need to get responses from my horse. But what I find is very often they're not as spiritual as they claim to be, and they just choose to spend less and less time with their horses. So if you truly can be expecting nothing from your horse, bravo to you. I congratulate you. That's a wonderful Zen way of being. But it's not the reality for most of us herd animals. Most of us herd animals need a response. We need a response from our friends, from our partners, from our family, from our surroundings. We need to be seen. That's part of being a herd animal. How you go about getting responses, there's a huge variety of ways to do it. But the fact is, pressure is always building until the horse feels the need to do something new. That's how it works. So even if you're not involved, okay, so let's just say they're eating grass, favorite thing in the world. If they're going to eat grass and they're going to eat grass, there is pressure building in their stomach, and eventually they won't be able to fit any more grass in there. And I know some of you say that's impossible, my horse could eat forever. But if you actually watch them eat for 24 hours, I promise you the pressure would eventually build until they had to stop eating. Pressure builds in any activity you do. So pressure is always building or releasing. We don't live in a static environment. So when we talk about whether you use escalating pressure or not, I think that it's a much more nuanced conversation than that, because escalating pressure is a fact of life. The question is, are you the one applying it? And are you using your powers for good or evil? So if we are the ones applying pressure, which inevitably we do because we're herd animals, we need a response. That's how we interact with others. If you're not getting enough responses from your partners, you're probably going to choose to spend less time with them. That's just how it goes. So if you want a partnership that you really enjoy being in, you've got to develop a pattern and a habit of giving good responses to each other. So if we're going to develop a pattern of giving good responses to each other, we've got to figure out how do we elicit those responses. And escalating pressure is one of those ways to elicit it. I actually am a big fan of escalating pressure when it's used well, because it is the quickest route to get back to enjoying life with your horse and not putting any pressure on at all. Now, does that mean no pressure exists? Of course not. We're living in a dynamic world. Pressure exists all the time. So there's pressure of temperature, there's pressure of weather, there's pressure of hunger, there's pressure of thirst, there's pressure, pressure exists. And pressure is always building or waning. That's the way life works. So if we can be seen as a force of good in the horse's life, or in anyone's life, we want to get through the raising pressure to the decreasing pressure as efficiently and beautifully as possible. Whether you use escalating pressure or whether you just put a little pressure on and then you hold it, that's up to you. And you ultimately have to experiment and decide what works best for you, what works best for your horse. Is the pressure of time passing more kind than the pressure of intensity building? I don't have an answer for you there. I know that I personally don't like building intensity, so I choose other ways to do it. But I watch trainers who do it well, and I think, wow, that might actually be kinder to the horse. Doesn't mean I'm going to do it, because, you know, I like what I like. I'm going to find other ways to get responses from my horse because that's my journey. And if it takes a little longer, it takes a little longer. I'd like to think I give my horses a pretty good life, and I use the pressure of time in an artful and gentle way. I'm mostly going to elicit responses from my horses by choosing the moments that they give responses to the world in general naturally. They feel the pressure of a noise in the environment. They look up. I'm going to take that as a win. I'm going to join them. I'm going to be in harmony with them. And that ability to be as one with my horse when they're interested in something in the environment, I'm going to take that as my tiny little ability to get responses from my horse. Now, first I do it through affirming. So I affirm what happens naturally. Then I'm going to do it through supporting, where I see if I can cause it. But the important part of this for me is that, let's say I stroke their neck and they ignore me. Well, all right, let's try something else. Let's say I rock their hip and they ignore me. No problem. Let's try something else. Okay, let's say I go ahead and fix their mane and make it all straight. Do they ignore me? All right, no problem. Let's try something else. So by that way of changing what I'm doing, I am using the pressure of time, because time will eventually put enough pressure on them that they need to give a response to something. Time escalates pressure as it passes. That's just the way it works. I like that way of using escalating pressure, letting time be the escalator. But I do believe pressure is still escalating for the horse. Eventually, I would like to be able to stroke their neck and have them give me a response. And sometimes I might even persist a little bit. Actually, quite often I'll persist and say, I really want a response because I'm human. I'm a herd animal. I want a response. And the fact is, my horses want responses too. So when I ask for a response of a change of focus by stroking their neck and they give it to me, then I give them back a response, which means I face the same direction as them. I make my feet the same as them. I'm interested in the same thing as them, even if it's just grass. And that shows them I'm as interested in their thing as they are in my thing. And when we can give responses back and forth to each other, we are both happier herd animals. Now, all of this to say is I don't choose to use a lot of escalating pressure, mostly because you need tools to do it. You have to stop the horse from leaving. So if you escalate pressure, you have to stop them from leaving you. Even if you put pressure on and you hold it there and you wait for time to escalate the pressure, they have to not be able to leave for that to work. So if they have the freedom to leave, what that demands of us is that we are more open-minded and experimental. And we are willing to build from a very, very small response over time to bigger and bigger responses. So that means that we're going to really affirm everything that happens naturally. We're going to support things that happen easily. Occasionally, we're going to persist, which means we ask them to try something that's not their first inclination. Can they give us a response, even if it's not their preference? I like to do that 10 to 20% of the time. That's about the balance that works for me. I really believe that the trainers out there doing a very good job with escalating pressure are perhaps making their horses' lives easier than I do, where it's very clear what's expected of the horse. It's very quick and the escalating pressure ceases quickly and they can get back to having a really good life together. And that's a bit of a controversial point of view. I know that. And it's particularly interesting because it's not even something I do. It's just something I believe is potentially very good for horses. And the fact that I choose to use time and variety as my method of training, realizing that pressure is escalating, but I'm doing my best to ride the waves of naturally escalating pressure instead of causing them, at least until later in the training when I know the reception of the horse is going to be really good. So I've got a comment here. Let's see. Jerry says, this is wonderful and lovely for the person who's training and teaching and bonding with their own personal horses. For the person hired to get a horse started, going, ridden, handling well, the process may have to come up a notch or two. Not saying better or worse, good, bad, just the good colt hand can generally get his message across in a kind, gentle manner and not scare or hurt his horse he's working with and end up doing just fine with him. The owner can then go home and create his own bonding methods and take all the time in life. And I agree with you 100%, Jerry. Thank you so much for that succinct way of saying it. All of us in our own homes can make the choices we want to make, and we have all the time in the world. I don't think it is worse for a very good trainer to use escalating pressure in a way that gets education done in a very clear manner that allows the horse to come back to a really happy way of life very, very quickly. Escalating pressure takes out the time aspect. So pressure is going up and coming down. When you escalate pressure, you make it faster, which also makes the release faster. Because let's face it, the horse learns from the release, not the pressure. So the faster you can get to the release, the faster the horse learns. And the faster the horse has life skills, potentially the better their life is. So if you're like me and you just really like taking time because it feels good and you like the way that evolves the relationship with your horse, great. I'm here to support you. I love that. I also think that it's really important for us to realize there are many roads to Rome and there's many ways to train horses. And just because somebody chooses escalating pressure does not mean they've made a worse choice. In fact, I think they may have made a better choice for the horse. For me, I am going to make the choice that makes me happy every day with my horses because, you know, that's what we have horses for. We still need responses from each other. There still is going to be pressure. We get to dial it up or dial it down as much as we want, but it is our responsibility to then look at the outcome and say, is this working for me and my horse? Because if I'm expecting time to be the escalator of pressure, is it perhaps making my horse unhappy for longer? And is that perhaps unnecessary for the horse? So what I found is that you can dial it pretty high or pretty low and have a good outcome. The middle ground drives horses crazy for the most part. So if you try and use non-escalating pressure, but you still want what you want when you want it, you're going to end up putting the horse in a very uncomfortable position and then waiting for time to get your message across and potentially ending up with a very irritated horse. And that's something we all sort of have to come to terms with and decide, do we want to bring the pressure down and work more slowly so that that's not the outcome? Or do we want to bring it up and work more quickly so we have clarity and the horse can find the release sooner than later? Wendy says, this is timely as I'm working on trailer loading with a new horse. Yeah. So trailer loading is a place where pressure definitely comes into the picture. And, you know, we want what we want from our friends. And we want responses when we ask for something. That's what bonds us together as herd animals. Do you escalate pressure? Or do you hold the horse in that crucible of learning where time escalates the pressure on them? Or, you know, you can take the third option, which is mine, which is ridiculously slow, which is where you have a trailer nearby and you visit it frequently and you leave before they hate it and you make it a good experience and you just visit it millions of times until they're curious about going on the inside and you always leave them wanting more. That it's ridiculously slow. I'm just going to be upfront and honest. If you want to lower the pressure that much and work with the cycles of motions and the cycles of time, you can train anything you want. But the hours invested are so many that you may have a very happy horse that doesn't actually know how to get in the trailer within the time frame you think is reasonable. So that's some food for thought for everyone. And I'm here doing what I do because I think somebody in the world needs to be doing it as an option. There's lots of options for training. And I think that all of us would do well to respect that the option that works for you is not going to be the best option for everyone. And if we can work together to realize that there's a lot of good options and all of them are going to have their benefits and their drawbacks. Robin says, I think about the different brain development that comes from puzzling through the nuance of time as an escalator of pressure versus what happens in more black and white world. Yeah. So I think that's a really beautiful thing, Robin. There's a lot of brain development that comes through the puzzling through something as we use time as an escalator. But sometimes that can lead to a huge amount of discomfort. And it's really an interesting question to say, how much discomfort is it okay for me to put on the horse? So if I use time as an escalator and they get too uncomfortable, the way I've worked it in my training is they can walk away and they can say, that's too much. I'm just not going to play that game. And then I go, okay, well, clearly that was too big a bite. We got to break it down and we're going to make sure. But I'm not sure that you can really do that on a halter and a lead rope because horses are taught from very, very early age that when the halter and lead rope is on, they cannot leave. And even though you say, oh, well, they wouldn't leave anyway. Well, okay. Why do you need your halter and lead rope then? So the halter and lead rope is an automatic signal to the horse they're not allowed to leave. And when they're not allowed to leave, they may get a lot more uncomfortable than you realize when you use time as an escalator. Now, motivation is part of this. So becoming uncomfortable is a motivator. It motivates them to give responses. It motivates them to learn things. It motivates them to develop their brain. And yeah, that can be good. But as we all know, pressure beyond a certain point becomes a quality of life issue. And that's where, if we're going to escalate pressure beyond a certain point to really motivate horses a lot, maybe adding pressure in a more black and white kind of way is kinder to them, because then you can release it faster. And I think it's a good question. It's a good question for all of us to ask. I ask myself that question all the time because I repeatedly choose not to do it. And I want to be really honest with my choices. My choices are not right for everyone. My choices are mine, and they're the way that I like to work horses. So I have a lot of respect to all of you trainers out there who are using escalating pressure in a really kind manner so that horses really understand how to live in a human world. I think that's great. Hopefully my horses also get there at some point where they know how to live in a human world. But it's going to take a lot longer the way I do it. And I like that. I like the brain development that goes along with it, as Robin said. And I think that I can do it so that the discomfort is minimal using time as a pressure increaser, because I'm going to work with the natural cycles of the emotional system. And I'm going to work with the horse in their ups and their downs in a way that I think we can have a pretty good life together as we learn just a little bit at a time. So those are my thoughts on escalating pressure. I don't think that I reinvented the wheel with this conversation. Just some food for thought. And let me know if you have any thoughts about this, or if there's any other topics you'd like me to talk about in the future. I always like something to turn my brain to. Have a wonderful day, you guys. Enjoy your Tuesday wherever you are in the world.